All right, this is a very, very big topic that a lot of people have been asking me this question. And the reason why they've been asking me this question is because they know my background. They know that, I have gone, multiple college degrees. I do a lot of working with some universities, also serving on the board of a foundation for a university. And a lot of people have been asking me this question. And part of the reason they ask this question, because a lot of the videos that I do where I normally focus on, understanding finance and accounting for business owners. But one of the videos that I talked about before was being able to think through a business case. And pretty much what thinking through a business case is all about is it's really decision. So thinking through a business case is really about thinking through what are the benefits and what is the, compared to the cost of this decision. And so with this question of is college education a waste? This is something that a lot of people are trying to sort through. And I'm going to give you my honest answer. And the good thing about it is, I run my own business. I'm not on the payroll for any university. So I'm not at risk of, I guess you say, losing anything for being honest. Even if I was on the payroll for a university, I would still be honest with you about what my answer is, because I do think that this is a very, very serious question that a lot of people are trying to grasp and a lot of people are trying to think through and they're trying to process. And the way that I'm going to approach this is I'm going to take some of the business owner mentality that, I've experienced from running my own business as well as being a leader, a business leader in different businesses, different jobs that I had before I started my own business, and really take that perspective to really help answer this question. So first, I want to when you think about the college education, a lot of times, these are the two pictures that come to mind for some people. What we hear about in kind of news media, whether social media, whether it's, all talking heads, whatever it is, from posts, memes, whatever, you typically see the left side to be a a more, a more repeated kind of conversation where people are really talking about, the education system really does look like, from, you start off as a kid, you're excited, go to school, the kids get their book packs and they're going to school, they're learning, they're going through everything. They get to go to college, if that's the route that they choose. And then they leave with this mountain of debt that they're trying to carry. And then on the other spectrum of it is where you see college becomes like a springboard for some people. Like the vision that they have is, hey, I go into college. College is actually going to give me the springboard so I can get to what I determine to be or what I label as success. I can get there faster and I can skip over some intermediate steps. And the question that, we're asking is college worth it? Like, which one is the real reality when it comes down to a college education? Because there are thousands and thousands of people that are going through the college education system, thousands of people who have already gone through the college education system. And many of them are asking themselves, like, hey, what's the deal? Was this worth it? And hey, is it still worth it? So before I answer that question, let me give you a little bit of context on who I am. So my background is accounting and finance. I went to undergrad at Lander University, and then I went to graduate school at the University of Notre Dame. So I have a bachelor's degree and I have a master's degree. So I've gone through quite a bit of schooling, 5 years worth of schooling. I've worked in the corporate finance and accounting for Fortune 500 companies, kind of, one of the world's largest accounting firms right out of college, worked for some Fortune 500 companies. I've also worked for smaller tech companies. And now I run my own accounting and finance firm. It is the TL Turner Group. And Also run a media company called the Business Talk Library, which is kind of what you're watching now, where we create a ton of different content. And in that content, like over the last 19 months, we've talked to over 480 different business owners. And they're people from different backgrounds, people from different perspectives, people who have college education, some that are college dropouts, some they never even went to any college. They just, started a business or started a trade and started working that developed into a business. And it's amazing to think about all of that, because what I will use is I'll use a lot of, what I've learned from talking to hundreds of people on camera, doing interviews and asking them questions, and even my own experience, and really understanding, okay, all right, how do we answer this question? Is a college education a waste? Is it a waste of time and a waste of money? Now, to give a little bit of context, I'm speaking more so from, the experience of, college in the US. Now, I'm not completely sure about college in other countries, but there are some very big differences as I've talked to different people, like, people who go to a university in, like, I was talking to someone in a Central American country, and she was just talking about, the college education, like, the value, or as she was saying, the lack of the value of getting an education there. So I don't know about every country. Like, I'm not ubiquitous, meaning like, hey, that well, my answer is going to apply to every country in the world. I don't know that, because I don't know what it's like there. But I will speak more to the US. And when it comes down to the US, some statistics that I looked up. Now, these statistics I think are like back from 2020, but I still think that they're fairly, they haven't changed a gross amount. But I mean, when you look at just the cost, one of the first things that people tend to, realize is that one is college is not cheap. It is an expensive, it is a large price tag to it. I will say that, because I don't want to bias it and say, oh, it's an expense, meaning it has no future value, or hey, it's an investment, meaning that it does have some future value. I'm going to say it is a price tag. And it is a huge price tag to go through a college education. And with a lot of the things that are going on in colleges and universities, and just the way that things are trending, it doesn't look like the price is going to be going back down. Now, competition with some online programs and stuff like that, they do present some competition for prices to kind of maybe reduce in some locations, but for the most part, prices really aren't going to really go down. I mean, from when you think about tuition, plus when you think about like room and board, like this becomes an expensive endeavor. I mean, especially if you're thinking about this on a per semester basis. I mean, if you're thinking about this on a per semester basis, meaning like twice a year, this amount of money has to either be taken out in loans, or this amount of money has to be paid in cash. And that becomes quite the expensive undertaking. And so that is why it's very, very important to answer the question that is, what, is college a waste of money? I mean, is it a waste, or is it something that does have a future value? I mean, are there some aspects about it that can be used and be leveraged to where you can get more benefit, and where the benefit could potentially outweigh the, where maybe at some point the benefit could outweigh the cost. But that is what I want to answer. Now that I've kind of given you the context, I'm going to get to it. Here's what my answer is. For a lot of people that I have talked to and a lot of people that I've met, I honestly believe that a college education was a waste of money. And I say that from this perspective of that people, well, I guess before I explain that, I'll say the other side of it is, now, personally, for people like myself, I don't think that college was a waste of money. Actually, I think college was a huge win for me. Now, it all depended on how you approach the college education. So for the people that I think that it was a huge waste for were the people who went to college without any kind of sense of an aim of what do you actually want to get out of this? Like, why are you going? Like, what's the point? Where some people went to college with the perspective of, oh, it's just the next step after 12th grade. You graduate from high school, college is just the next step. From what I have observed, people that went into college with that perspective, it was a huge waste for them. I mean, for a lot of those people, they are very similar to the picture we showed where they're carrying around mountains of debt because they really didn't go into it with a plan and there was no real outcome that they were aiming for. So, if that's the way you go to college, then it would be a huge waste because I mean, think about it this way. Is if you went on a road trip and let's say you were gonna, or let's say, yeah, you were gonna go on a road trip and you wanted to get to a certain destination and you didn't actually, or let's say you just got in the car and you just started driving and you never actually picked a destination. What I would tell you is you're gonna waste a lot of time in the car just driving if you have nowhere that you're trying to end up. If you just say, hey, I'm just trying to go where the road takes us. And I think, okay, there are some people who do that on a road trip, but on a road trip, the price of gas is very, very insignificant compared to the price of tuition and room and board and all that type of stuff. But when it comes down to actually what you're doing with your, like, when you're making as big of a price tag as a college education, if you go into this aimlessly, like, hey, I'm just going to show up and, what I need to do next will just come. And not saying that you have to have it all figured out, but you do want to have some general idea of what am I trying to gain from this college education? Like, where do I want this road to lead? And you may not have an exact pinpoint location, but you do want to have some type of idea. Because, like I said, if college is just the next stage of your education process, and all you're trying to do is check the box, that becomes a very expensive box to check. Now, on the other hand, where I say that, hey, for people like myself, and there are many people, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that I've met where college was, in fact, a phenomenal thing for them. It's what I saw to be a very common trend in those people is that there was some sense of an idea of what they wanted to gain from this college experience, meaning there was some type of outcome that they had in mind. So, all of the things that they were doing during their college experience, well, let me be honest, not all of them, because I don't care who the person is. There were definitely some downtime, some social time, and it's perfectly, in my opinion, it's perfectly fine. Like, I was having this conversation with my wife the other day about, I'm like, college was a great time for me. Now, I worked really, really hard. I mean, throughout college, I pretty much was on the dean's list every single semester. But the reality of it is I wasn't working 24/7. There was a lot of downtime. There was a lot of fun time, a lot of road trips. In my case, there was a lot of parties and a lot of fun hanging out with friends and stuff like that. There were some internships. So it wasn't all, hey, I'm just going to class and that's it. My college time was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work to, like I said, to make sure. But part of what made it even more valuable was, like I said, I had a general idea in mind of where college fit into an overall plan of what I was trying to do. And because I had that overall plan in mind, I could actually reverse engineer and work backwards to kind of figure out, like, hey, how can I use this time in college to make the most of it? So when I graduate, I'm not like, a person who's, struggling to be able to justify how I just spent the last 4, 5, 6 years of my life, to where when I had somewhat of an idea, it really played a big role. Now it brings me to the business owner mentality, to where I've answered the question of, is college a waste of money? for people who go into it aimlessly, absolutely. College is a waste of money for people who don't have an objective of what are they trying to get out of it. And now, I'm not one to judge people's objective, because if you come back and you say, "Hey, my objective is to make my parents proud and stuff," I mean, I do think something like that does have a value to the individual person. Now, that may not have a financial, like your parents being proud of you may not have a financial value to it, but it does have some type of, I guess you would say, intrinsic value to you of what that is worth. And you may deem that, hey, making them proud is worth the 4 years or the years that it takes, and is worth the money that's invested to do that. If that is what your decision is, I think at least you're going into it with an objective in mind. But for those that just kind of go into college like, hey, I just kind of feel it as I go, and they never seem to really identify what's my objective, what's my why, then those people, I would say college is definitely a waste for those people. But for the people that go into it that have some sense of an objective that they're working towards, those are the people that I think are going to actually be able to have a better chance of making college a valuable experience. Now, on the business side, now when it comes down to people, let's say if your idea is, hey, I want to go to college because, I want to put me in a better position for a job, or put me in a better position to understand or learn some things that I don't know. Because let's say I want to start a business, or hey, I want to, be a researcher, or I want to do this or do that. These next couple things that I'm going to talk about are tips that I have seen work in business, as well as talking to a lot of other people, that I think that if you are going to college or if you're in college, these things will be a gold mine for helping you actually make your college experience even more valuable if you can use these ideas. Now, I did a whole segment on this, did a whole show that's going to be aired on RETV probably in next season. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through three of the ideas that I talk about in that entire segment. But these ideas are ones that I'm telling you, if you are in college, or if you're thinking about going to college, I'm telling you, if you use these ideas, telling you, it will change things for you drastically. Now, the first thing that I would say, is the first idea I would definitely say, if I were in college and I was talking to a college student, the very first thing that I would tell you to do is, as a college student, you should definitely start a podcast. Now, what your podcast is about is completely up to you. But the reason why I tell you that you should definitely start a podcast is because one of the most valuable skills that you can develop is your ability to be able to communicate and to connect with people. And one of the things that you'll learn in starting a podcast is it forces you to get better at communicating. I mean, because we live in a world where, like I said, once you go into, whether you're going to go into a job or whether you're going to go into your own business, you have to develop the skill of being able to communicate. Now, yes, you can start a podcast without going to college. That's perfectly fine. But what I'm talking to are the people who have already decided to go to college, and you have an idea in mind of why you wanted to go to college. So you have your why. What I'm saying is, develop a podcast that aligns to your why, because it will allow you to get even more value out of, the college experience. Because think about it this way, is let's say if you wanted to graduate and you wanted to get a job with a certain company. Well, whenever you're applying to those companies, and which I know this from the standpoint of, I've interviewed hundreds and met hundreds of people at recruiting events and so forth from various companies. And one of the things that, that the recruiters typically struggle with is, a lot of people are going to send in a resume. And what you're trying to figure out is which one stands out to you. Now, imagine this, you sending your resume against a ton of other people. All these resumes are here, and you're trying to figure out what stands out about this person. because there's only so much you're going to be able to communicate about yourself, about your skill sets, about what you're able to do on a piece of paper, or maybe it's electronically. But imagine if you had a podcast, talking about, let's say, your field of study, or you're communicating about something that's important to, let's say, the company that you're trying to apply for. Well, if you have a podcast, and that's what the recruiters, they see that, hey, this person has a podcast. One of the amazing things that allows you to do is it allows the recruiters to be able to see you communicating your ideas more than all the other competitors. Because again, there's only so much you can communicate on a piece of paper. But if you had a podcast on your field of study, or a podcast episode that is relevant to the company you're applying for, it will make you stand out more in their mind. And plus, I will tell you, as you start to develop a podcast and you start communicating on any subject matter, you're going to become more skilled in being able to talk about that subject matter. So, let's say for my instance, I studied accounting in school. If I were in school, I would start a podcast about accounting. Why? Because one is it would help me develop a better brand as a future professional. Plus, it would help me actually understand the material a little bit more, because you tend to understand things that you talk about more. Things that you have conversations about, you tend to understand more. And the thing about it is, it's not like it takes a ton of time. The equipment you would probably need is a cell phone and maybe a microphone and a laptop, which for most college students, that's pretty standard things that they have. Maybe not the microphone, but you can actually just use your cell phone, record it in your cell phone, and you can just upload it for a lot of sites for free online. Now, the next idea that I think is a amazing idea that if I were in college, I would definitely use it. And this one I would like to call the career red carpet. Now, the concept about this is, again, I've been in the position of being a recruiter that is, or I guess say, I was a finance leader working for several different companies, going to campuses, looking to hire, new talent. So I wasn't like, my profession wasn't recruiter. I was helping the recruiting team by showing up to different events, meeting students, and doing career fairs. And one of the things that I noticed is it is very difficult for you to remember everybody that you meet. I mean, because there's a ton of people that you meet, so you're not going to remember everyone. So one of the things that I think you can do is focus on being memorable. Now, one of the things that you realize in watching like award shows like the Oscars and stuff like that, or any type of major event, is you typically remember what happened on the red carpet. There are times where you remember what happened on the red carpet more than you remember what actually happened in the show or in the award ceremony. So this idea is all about you creating that experience for the recruiters. Here's how it would work. Usually whenever there's a career fair, the career development department is the one that's coordinating with these different companies to come in to host a career fair or something like that. I mean, even if it's happening virtually, the career department may be the one that's coordinating. Let's say you're a student and you're like, hey, there's a couple companies that I really want to make a good impression on. If you were using the idea that I had from the first one of, hey, having a regular podcast, what you could do is talk to the person that's coordinating the career fair. And here's the idea. Hey, I know we have all these companies coming for the career fair. I run a podcast on XYZ profession. I would love to reach out to some of these businesses that we have coming in for the career fair to see if they had about 5 minutes to be a guest on the podcast to talk about, hey, what are the top 2 things that you look for in candidates who apply for your company? Now, the reason why you're doing this is because you will now be the most memorable person at that career fair. Because think about it. If all of the companies that you would like to work for are first coming to you, They sit down, they have a conversation with you for about 5 minutes about the top two things that they look for candidates, and then they go into the career fair. If you become the red carpet interviewer for the career fair, I'm telling you, every business that shows up looking to hire someone will remember you over every other person that is at the career fair. So that idea is a little out of the box, but I think it is one that will definitely work. Now, the last one I want to cover is, if I were in college, I mean, one of the things that you think about is, parties are a very common occurrence in college. I mean, regardless of what anybody says, I mean, for many of you that are in my following, you have children that are of college age, they're in college, and from your experience, and if you didn't go to college, one of the things that you can be honest about is college partying is a very big thing that happens in colleges. So when it comes down to parties, a lot of times, people, they want to go to some of the best parties. They want to get invited to the events on, like, hey, where is the fun really happening? Where are, the people that you want to be around? Where are they at? When it comes down to a career, and in many cases, when it comes down to, building a business and entrepreneurship, LinkedIn is like a party for professionals. It's like a party for your potential customers, for your potential vendors, potential business partners. LinkedIn is a party that is happening constantly. And if you are not on the platform, then you limit your ability to be able to actually benefit from this party that's already happening. So I would say, if I were in college, one of the things that I would definitely do is I would join LinkedIn with the plan of engaging with people that are actually aligned to what my goal is. For example, if I go back to when I was in college, one of the things that I would do is I would join and I would look for people in the accounting profession that are either writing articles, that are creating posts, and I would engage. I would leave comments on their posts. I would even reach out and let them know, hey, I'm a student studying accounting. Would love to hear if you have any tips for me. I mean, really starting to engage and reach out, because one of the things that you realize is that being able to have different people and get connected to different networks, it opens different doors. For example, even when I was in college, there were some parties that I went to where I met people at those parties that I never would have met on my own. Like, I mean, I was in a I was a president of my college fraternity, and a lot of times we go to travel to different schools, meet up with fraternity brothers from different schools, and at some of those parties, I would meet people that I never had the opportunity to meet before. But in those relationships, they played a major role in helping me later on down the line. And the thing I'm telling you is, LinkedIn has pretty much just about every key person who makes a decision about hiring, or even if you're a business owner who's making a decision about whether or not they're going to do business, more than likely they're on LinkedIn. And if you find a creative and a value-based way to be able to connect with them, then that could play huge into your benefit. So if you are in college and you've decided, like, hey, college is the path, and you have a why for why you want to go to college and how college will play a role in that strategy, what I'm telling you, these three ideas of starting a podcast in your field, the red carpet event. And if you missed what I explained about the red carpet career fair event, go back, listen to that. I'm telling you, that is a gold mine of an idea. And on this idea, if you are in college, you definitely need to get on LinkedIn, because I'm telling you, everyone that you want to meet in the line of a profession, or even in starting a business, just about everyone that you want to meet is on LinkedIn. And it is a great place for you to be able to network and meet some people that you never would have met on your own. So I hope that helps answer the very, very important of, is college a waste of money? I already gave you my answer on that. And for those of you that have decided that, hey, college is not a waste of money, it is an opportunity, it can be a springboard, here are three ideas that I think will really, really help you make college a even bigger springboard if you want to approach it in a more smart and a more crafty way of being able to make sure that you make the most of this experience.